Okay, so welcome to the webinar, How to Apply Where to Play in Your Business or Startup. We're going to spend the next 60 minutes together, and I want to walk you through the following topics. First, a little overview on the Market Opportunity Navigator and how it complements other well-known business tools like the Business Model Canvas and the Lean Startup. Then we will walk through the framework itself with an example to make it a bit more explicit. And then we will talk about supporting materials and some tips that I can share with you on how to apply it in your own organization or startup. At the end, we'll have about 10 minutes to answer questions and to answer your questions. So let's begin. We are on a mission to search for a scalable business model. And it doesn't matter if it's a startup or a large corporate. And lucky for us, we have great business tools to help us in this process, like the business model canvas that you see in front of you, the value proposition canvas, the customer development process, and the design thinking methodology. However, while all these great tools tell us how to rapidly find product market fit inside a market or how to pivot quickly if our hypotheses turn wrong, what they don't tell us is where to actually start the search for our new business. This is why recently Steve Blank wrote a post about the Market Opportunity Navigator titled "Stop Playing Target Market Roulette." And the idea is the following. When you, before you zoom in to find your business model, you need to figure out where to actually search. Think about an example. For example, a company that is called Flyability. It's a Swiss-based company that develops this drone that you see here on the screen. It's a drone with an advanced image system, but the unique thing about it is that it has a protective cage around it, and therefore it can fly in complex and confined spaces and next to people. The team that developed this drone, initially thought about using the drone to manage disastrous areas like the one in Fukushima in Japan. But very quickly, they figured out that this drone can actually do many different jobs for different types of customers, and they needed to figure out where to start building their business. If this case sounds familiar to you, it was because it was published on the Steve Blank post. And what we will actually do today is walk through this example in a little bit deeper, so you get a sense of how we actually find out where to play. So we do that with a framework that we call the Market Opportunity Navigator. And as Steve Blank said, it's a new addition to the Lean toolset. The main reason for that is that it provides a wide lens perspective. And this wide lens perspective of different market domains help you not only to discover different possible paths for your innovation, but also to find the best starting position before you actually zoom in on finding your business model and experimenting with your minimum viable product. It also helps you to identify backup options or new growth opportunities for the future and allows you to bake them into your strategic plan. And this framework, this wide lens perspective, is valuable not only for startups making their initial market choice, but also whenever you need to think or rethink your strategy. So it is valuable just as well for large companies. And I hope what we will do today, part of my mission today is to show you why. Eventually, if we need to depict a clear process, we can say that the Market Opportunity Navigator is the front-end tool for customer development. You can use this tool to figure out first where to zoom in, and then use the other tools to figure out how to actually play. Now, take into consideration that in reality, this is actually a very iterative process. It's a learning process where you zoom in and zoom out. But if we need to depict a stepped process, this is probably the way to move forward. And what we will do today is look at this framework and understand how to actually apply it in your organizational setting. So, what does it require us? What do we need to do in order to figure out where to play? What we actually need to figure out is the answer for 3 key questions. The first one is understanding which market opportunities exist for us. Who would need our innovation? What else can we do with it? The second question is, once we have these opportunities at hand, which one is more or less attractive for our company? And the third question, based on this understanding, would be what market opportunities should we focus on and how should we do it properly? So to answer these 3 key questions, we developed the Market Opportunity Navigator to have 3 steps. The first step is what we call generating your market opportunity set. With the help of a dedicated worksheet, worksheet 1, you discover new market opportunities for your innovation. The result can be depicted on this shopping bag using sticky notes that represent different market opportunities. So flyability, for example, identified 5 markets at the outset which they wanted to learn more and further consider. The second step of the navigator is what we call the attractiveness map, and that's the evaluation step where you take the opportunities that you discovered and assess them thoroughly based on their potential and the challenge. And the output of this assessment, which is done with a dedicated worksheet, which we call worksheet 2, can be depicted on the attractiveness map, and that allows you to understand the upsides and downsides of each option and also to see the big picture and compare them. And that is how this attractiveness map looked for flyability after we've done this thorough learning process. And the third step of the navigator is what we call the agile focus dartboard. It allows you to define clearly the opportunities that you will pursue now, your primary focus, but also the option that you will keep open for future backup or growth, and those that you will place in storage. You can do this with the help of worksheet 3 that helps you to design this smart portfolio of backup and growth option and depict it on this dartboard. So for flyability, you can see that they chose to focus on power plants, keep 3 opportunities open for the future, and put 1 option in storage. So we will walk through the process of flyability and their drone, but this gives you an overview of what we are aiming to achieve. Overall, working with the Market Opportunity Navigator gives you a systematic approach, a way to make smart strategic choices in a thorough and structured manner, and therefore take the luck element out of the equation. We should not rely on luck to be able to identify our most promising path or future growth. The second thing that using this structured process allows you is to work in a team, share, debate, discuss, and then reach agreement. So after all, innovation is a team sport, and it's important to keep this in mind. And then lastly, and maybe one of the most important things to keep in mind, is that having a wide lens perspective on your possibilities allows you to adopt an open mindset. And this is very important if you're a startup or if you're a large corporate. But in our studies that focus on startups, we've seen that 73% of these companies change their market focus in the first 3 years. So keeping an open mindset is actually critical for their success. So the framework that gives you a wide lens perspective allows you to keep in mind different directions for the future and develop this cognitive flexibility and open mindset. Okay, let's walk through the process step by step with keeping the flyability example in mind so that hopefully it becomes a bit more clear. The first step is identifying market opportunities for your business. The mission here is to deliberately take a step back and see the big picture. What we want to make sure is you don't dive into the details of how to run in a specific direction before you take the time to understand the whole forest, to see your whole landscape of opportunities, your sphere of options. Once you see the forest in itself, you can then make a more informed choice which option is more promising for you. And by the way, having options at end and seeing a larger wide lens perspective allows you also to bake agility into your venture. So what are we looking for? We are looking for a combination of an offering and a customer, meaning any application of a unique ability or unique technology for a specific set of customer is one market opportunity for your venture. We are hoping to find different market opportunities for your innovation. Let's look at some examples why. So technologies in nature are fungible. You can use technology or the same innovation, the same unique abilities to create different offerings and address the needs of different types of customer. In the example that you see here is a company called Fujifilm from Japan that used to produce the photography film. But when they did so, they got very advanced in compound materials technologies, and these technologies could then be applied once the photo film market was out. They could apply this knowledge to create different products for different types of markets. You can see here the environmental market, the energy market as an example. So clearly, you need to keep in mind that your innovation could create different offerings and address different types of customers. And the way you think about your company is what it will become at the end. Another thing to keep in mind on why this big picture is important is because we are living in an era where industry boundaries are not so relevant anymore. Think about Uber as an example. What we see here is that Uber, with their unique abilities, are playing in completely different industries. In the taxi industry, Uber Eats, the delivery industry, and recently even Uber Wine suggestion. So they don't really play in a specific industry. What they're looking for, or what they need to do is discover their opportunity space. And this is where a wide lens perspective is actually so valuable. Find your opportunity space and then figure out where to focus. How do you do that? So we designed a process and depicted it on the first worksheet, a process that begins with your core abilities. What you see here on the screen are building blocks for kids. These building blocks in our analogy represent your unique abilities or competencies. It could be technological elements that you have developed or planning to develop. It could be a specific know-how that you have. It doesn't have to be, by the way, a technology. It could be specific assets that you might possess. And the reason it's depicted as building blocks, because what you can do with these building blocks is build different types of constructions or towers. You can use some of them to build your tower. You can use them all to build different towers. And these towers would be your applications or offerings. So we want to urge managers and business leaders to think in a flexible, more generic manner about their core abilities. To do that, you can use worksheet 1 of the Market Opportunity Navigator. It begins, the upper part of the worksheet begins with listing your core abilities or technological elements. It's a process that we call de-linking. De-link your abilities from any specific product or offering that you have or that you have envisioned. Once you understand these core elements, you can relink them again on the bottom part of worksheet 1 to think about different or create different applications with them, meaning different usages or different domains or different jobs they can do, and list the customers who might need these applications. And remember that at the end of the day, any combination of an application and a customer is a specific market opportunity for you. So let's look at this company flyability with the drone that can fly in complex and confined spaces. And let's see how we went through step 1. First, we listed their unique abilities. It starts with a unique accessibility of the drone, and you can use the lines below to describe or characterize this ability, explain what the functions and properties or limitations that it has. Under here, you can see that this drone is collision tolerant. It has a decoupled and light protection cage. It can roll on any surface or operate in a range of temperatures and pressures. Then it had some aviation abilities because it's piloted on site with a video screen, and it can be piloted in dark, smoked, or dusty environments but it has a limited flight duration due to battery limitations. And lastly, we described the imagery system of this drone with HD and thermal recording, real-time video streaming, remotely adjustable, and it includes a post-mission analysis, just for you to get a sense of what this means. Next, we can think of different domains or different applications or different areas where we can apply this product. In the case of liability, we actually thought of 3 different applications. One of them was industrial inspection. The second one was infrastructure inspection. And the third one was security or search and rescue purposes. But industrial inspection is not a market domain or opportunity in itself. We have to specify the customers. So, for example, industrial inspection could be relevant for power plants, and then you can zoom in and talk about or look at thermal power plants to inspect boilers and heaters, look at nuclear power plants, or look at wind turbines. Industrial inspection is also relevant for the oil and gas industry or for the maritime industry, to name a few. The same process of discovering, of thinking of different customers was done for the different applications. And at the end, we did some very rough initial screening to come up with few market opportunities that seems to be most promising and require the further consideration of further assessments. So following this process, the team described 5 different market opportunities in their set. This included inspection of thermal power plants, inspection of oil and gas, inspection of the maritime, vessel inspection, and police officers for surveillance purposes. Now, it's still just a shopping bag of opportunities, and we need to take the time to understand which of these options is more or less attractive. So that is where the second step comes in. It's about evaluating market opportunities for your business. What is an attractive market opportunity? So we like to think of market opportunities as mountains. What we are looking for is a high mountain, meaning a mountain that bears high potential to generate value, to create value. But we're also looking for a mountain that we can actually climb and conquer and put the flag on the top, meaning one that has manageable challenge in capturing the value. So an attractive market opportunity is an opportunity that has high potential and manageable challenge. Looking at these two dimensions, potential and challenge, is exactly how we build the attractiveness map, the second step of the navigator. The y-axis is the potential to create value. The x-axis is the challenge to capture value. And like in every 2x2 matrix, it has 4 different quadrants. The first one and the most attractive quadrant is the gold mine zone, with options that have high potential and manageable challenge. Then you can also identify opportunities which are moonshot options, meaning high potential, but also high challenge. These are the high risk, high return alternatives. At the lower left, we have the quick win options, which are relatively modest in their potential, but also relatively safe in their challenge. That's why we call them quick wins. And at the last quadrant, which is the least attractive one, is the questionable option with the low potential and a lot of tears, sweat, and money to actually capture it. So this is how we distinguish between different market opportunities and their attractiveness. But the main question now comes, how do we know where to place our own opportunities? In other words, what is it that shapes the potential of an opportunity, and what is it that shapes the challenge of an opportunity? So to be able to answer this question, we designed worksheet 2. Worksheet 2 is a worksheet that you work with for every market opportunity in your set, and it helps you to assess the overall potential and the overall challenge of each option. Let's look at it. The left side of worksheet 2 is to assess the overall potential. It includes 3 main factors, and the idea is that you try to evaluate each factor in its own using the scale that you see here, ranging from low to super high. And once you evaluate each factor in its own right, you can then use this to estimate the overall potential. Let's look at these 3 factors then. The first one, which is also the most important one to start with, is the compelling reason to buy. Is there a real unmet need, and can we address it effectively and better than what is currently out there? The second factor is the size of the market, either now or in the near future. And the third factor is the economic viability of this market, meaning does it make sense from a business perspective to pursue it? Now, if we go back to flyability, one of the market that they wanted to learn more about is the inspection of boilers and heaters in thermal power plants. These huge facilities need to be inspected periodically, and it's a long process that requires a long shutdown, and it's actually dangerous to send employees to do that. So what the drone can do is fly around these boilers and heaters, take images, and do the inspection instead of sending people on the top. So the compelling reason to buy was super high. The size of the market is quite high as well. There are about 100,000 power plants around the globe. And the economic viability of this option was also rated as high because they had high margins, and the customer was well able to pay for their solution. So overall, using this understanding, we rated the overall potential of this direction as high. Next, we can look at the right side of worksheet 2 to evaluate the challenge of a specific market opportunity. Again, the process is the same. We walk through each factor separately, and then we combine it to rate the overall challenge. Let's walk through the factors then. The first one is the implementation obstacle, how difficult it is to develop and deliver the product and raise money to do that. The second factor is the time aspect until money start flowing in. That looks at the time to develop the product, but also the readiness of the market itself. And the last factor is the external risk. What is it in the business environment that is not in our control, but can hinder our success? This includes competitive threat or dependencies on others, for example. So let's go back to Flyability and their power plans and take a look at how they assess the challenge. So the implementation obstacles were rated as relatively manageable. They rated it as medium. They already had the drone more or less ready, and they didn't need any funding at that stage. The time to revenue was also quite quick. The market was ready for their innovation, and sales cycle was not expected to be too long. And the external risk were rated as low. They felt that they have a clear competitive advantage over other solutions, and they were not dependent on others in their success. So overall, the challenge of this idea, or of bringing value from this idea, was rated somewhere between low to mid. If we look at this combination, high potential and low to mid challenge, we can now understand that, or we can now take the sticky note and place it on the attractiveness map. And we can see that it is a gold mine opportunity. Now, this is a learning process that takes time. We ask ourselves the questions, we go out of the building, we try to bring evidence, and once we feel comfortable, we can place the sticky notes on the map. And we did the same process for the other options for Flyability, and at the end, this is how their attractiveness map looked like. So police officers, for example, were scored as moonshot option because it required some additional characteristics of the drone, which was not so easy to undertake. Now, before we move on to the third step, there is something very important that we need to keep in mind. This is not hard science. This is a qualitative process and a learning process. So you can start it by generating your key assumption and set your key action items for validating them. And then you can use the worksheet and the scales to score your overall assessment. But remember two things. First, this is, as I said, don't fall into the formula or the numbers perspective. This is not a numbered scale for purpose. We want you to think about it more as a qualitative assessment because it's not a mathematical evaluation. The second thing to keep in mind is that the scoring in itself is great, but the most important thing is not the scoring, is that you are able to understand the main upsides and downsides of your options. Once you've done this, you can use this understanding to prioritize market opportunities and do that in a smart manner. So let me explain what this means. I'm sure you've all remember the feeling of being a young kid and standing in front of this magnificent wall with all these shiny, colorful candies. We really want to eat them all. But our mother would probably tell us that you cannot eat them or eat too many because you will end up really sick. The same goes for businesses. We might have several directions that seems to be promising, but we do need to focus. We need to choose a path that we will concentrate our efforts into it. But this is not an easy decision, and there is one thing that we do need to keep in mind. The business world is unpredictable. There is a lot of fogginess going on, and we unfortunately don't have a crystal ball to tell us the future. So what we want to do is choose the candy that we plan to eat, but also be able to leverage others or other opportunities in our favor so we can handle this uncertain condition in an efficient manner. What does it actually mean? For startups, it means balancing focus and flexibility. So what we've seen in our research studies is that this is a challenge that needs to be well treated. Focusing sharply can come on the expense of flexibility. So to be able to deal with uncertain or this fogginess environment, startups have to make sure that they are focusing sharply, but also that they are maintaining their agility. The way to do it is to keep open other market opportunities, other candies in your store. If you are a large corporate, you can deal with this uncertainty condition by designing a balanced portfolio. So Naji and Taf developed this portfolio idea where you need to keep in your innovation funnels ideas or innovations that are called core, adjacent, and transformational. These are this would create a balanced portfolio for your company and will allow you to manage uncertainty more efficiently. So you can use additional market opportunities that you discovered to map where they are and to design this balanced portfolio for your corporate. So now let's see how this is done. The agile focus strategy, the last step of the navigator, helps you to clearly define the option, your primary path, your primary opportunity, the one that you will pursue now, but also define the options that you will keep open for future backup or growth, and define those that you will place in storage and do nothing about them for now. Just like Steve Jobs said, one of the hardest parts in focusing is saying no to some ideas. How do we do that? So let me explain the idea of this smart portfolio of backup and growth option that we keep open. A backup option answers the question, if we are not successful, what shall we do next? If we are not successful with the primary market that we chose to focus on, where should we be heading? A growth option is, if we are successful with the primary market that we chose to focus on, what shall we do next? Now, keep in mind that backup and growth options should be as synergetic as possible to your primary market. If they are closely related, you can leverage the resources, the capabilities, the relationships that you're building for one market and be successful in another one. So we are looking for related market opportunities that that can serve as potential backup or growth options. What would we do with these options? We want to keep them open. Keeping options open means that we allocate little resources and attention only to keep them breathing and to make sure that we don't lock ourselves out of it. It is exactly these small investments now that will allow you or your company to stay agile without or not at the expense of your focus. And this is exactly where we are aiming for. At the end of the day, having foresight on your backup and growth option helps you to make sure that you don't get trapped, because it influences many aspects of your organization or venture or innovation department. It will influence how you develop your technology, how you file your patents, how you recruit your employees or stakeholders, even how you pick your brand name or design your marketing materials. Take a look at this example. A company that is called Get Taxi, very similar in nature to Uber, had to change their name, their brand name, to Get, because very quickly they understood that their core abilities allow them not only to move people from one place to the other, but also to move many other things like deliveries, for example. So they invested a lot of effort to change the brand name that locked them in. That's just one example of how having this foresight allows you to develop your capabilities in a wider manner. How do we do that? So we have a dedicated worksheet to help you design this agile focus strategy. This worksheet begins with anchoring your primary opportunity, the one that seemed to be most attractive and interesting from your evaluation, and then looking at other options and understanding if they are valuable as backup or growth opportunities, and do we want to keep them open. So let's go back to flyability. The most promising market was the inspection of boilers and heaters in thermal power plants, so they chose this to be their primary focus. Then they looked at these other passes and I evaluated how related they are to this primary market. So for example, if we look at the oil and gas storage tanks, these are relatively related in terms of the product and tightly related in terms of the market. So this path, this opportunity could actually be an interesting growth option for flyability, and they decided to keep it open. They did the same when they examined the the vessel inspection for the maritime industry and the police officers for surveillance purposes. So for example, this opportunity, for this opportunity, the product was somewhat related, but the market was completely unrelated to the thermal power plants. This is because these markets did not share the same risk and the same showstoppers. They decided that it's valuable as a good backup idea, backup option, and they decided to keep it open as well. So once we've done this process, we could depict the strategy clearly on the Agile Focus dartboard, deciding what is it that we'll be focused on, what we will keep open, and which option we place in storage. Now, in brackets, I have to say that this strategy turned out to be a very successful one for the company. They grew from 0 to 2 million euros in sales in just 6 months, and they had a lot of inbound requests coming in. So I hope the process is now clear, and let's look at some of the supporting materials that we can offer you and some tips on how to go through this process yourself. So first of all, I hope you're familiar or heard about our book. The book is called Where to Play. It takes you by the hand through the entire process, including examples, some theoretical foundations, and use cases beyond startups. And it is now available not only in English, but also in French, German, and Chinese. Then we have an online course on edX. This online course is completely free. Anyone can enroll. It's called Find the Right Markets for Your Innovation. It includes over 8 hours of bite-sized videos, again with some examples, interviews, practice quizzes, whatever you need to actually get used to working with the framework and learning about it. Then you're welcome to take a look at our YouTube channel, Market Opportunity Navigator. You can find short videos there on the process, and I highly recommend to look at the flyability short case study. 12 minutes, it's again summarize this whole process. Either for you or for your team members to demonstrate the whole idea. And lastly, please visit our website, wheretoplay.co. There are articles and blog posts there explaining ideas beyond the navigator. And of course, you can download the Market Opportunity Navigator and its 3 worksheets for free. So now I want to share with you some major tips and ideas on how you can apply this process in your own team, startup, or corporate. The first thing I want to mention, or the whole idea here, is that it's a learning process. It helps you to make a more informed strategic choice. But at the end of the day, the navigator is a learning companion. To make this learning more effective, the first thing we want to do is try to be aware of our own biases. So the navigator is not designed to be to mirror your prior beliefs. It is designed to be a mirror in your face. Use it to set your hypothesis, your prior beliefs, go out of the building, turn these hypotheses into data or bring evidence to be able to assess this attractiveness of your different opportunities in a comprehensive, objective manner, as much as possible, of course. To be able to do this properly, or one thing that really helps to make sure you are not too biased, is to do this with a team. Make it a team decision. Use your colleagues, even your stakeholders, to debate, to share, to discuss ideas. And one main value of this process is that it's a communication tool. It's a shared language that can be to facilitate team discussion. And then lastly, make it iterative. So the process is depicted in a stepped manner, step 1, step 2, step 3, but it's actually very dynamic. You learn, you reflect on your learning, you go back, you discard some ideas, you add new ones, and you use it in an iterative manner. By the way, it's also true for the zooming in and zooming out idea that I mentioned at the beginning. You can use the navigator to figure out where to play, use the lean startup methodology to figure out how to play, and do it in an iterative manner. At the end of the day, appreciate not just the outcome, the result, the strategy that comes out of this whole learning. Appreciate the process just as much, because it is a learning and a key learning process. Now, one way to do this learning with other team members is to run a session at your organization based on the Market Opportunity Navigator or on specific steps of the navigator. For example, you can run a brainstorming session in your organization to identify new market opportunities for your company or for your innovation or unique competencies. So bring together a team or some employees, print the navigator and the worksheet on a large size paper, bring sticky notes, colorful sticky notes, and let them play with this process. What it does, it helps you and your team members to clearly define the core strengths of your department, your company, your venture. It will encourage team members to think about possible growth opportunities, might be breakthrough, promising ideas that you never thought of before. It also enhances the cooperation of other employees in these innovation activities. And of course, it's a fun, lively, hands-on activity. Once you do this exercise, you can actually divide the employees to teams, assign a market opportunity to each team, and let them work on the assessment on worksheet 2, and then set a date and a committee where everyone comes together, this, present their evaluation, and you can then move forward, decide which options move forward in your innovation funnel. Then I believe that it's quite valuable to make this learning process a habit. You can use the navigator to reflect on your learning over time. And you can do it just to set your action plan, not even your final strategic decision. So you've been learning over time. Entrepreneurship and innovation is a learning journey, and you can use the navigator to update the navigator to reflect on your new knowledge and figure out what to do next. By the way, this this process also helps you to deal with opportunistic ideas. So opportunism or opportunities that you haven't thought of before, but that all of a sudden pop up. A customer from a different market knock on your door and ask you to do something for them. This type of opportunities could be quite confusing, especially for a startup. So what you can do is really go back to the informed evaluation, put a new sticky note, figure out where it is located, and understand if you would like to change your strategy because of this new idea. At the end of the day, using a structured decision-making process helps you to build the proper DNA for your venture, one that applies structured, thorough mechanisms whenever it's an important strategic decision is on the table. Okay, what's next? As far as we are concerned, we would love to keep in touch. This means one of two. First, we want to hear back from you. We want to hear about your experience, and we are happy also to share your case study with our own audiences. So if you apply the navigator, you find it valuable and you're willing to share it with us, please do so. Another way where we can keep in touch is if you invite us to run a personalized mentoring program for you. We are happy to facilitate the decision-making process and the learning process for your organization. If you want to learn more about this option, you can visit wheretoplay.co/mentoring program or send me an email, sharon@wheretoplay.co. Okay, I hope it gave you some good insights on the process. And what we will do now is take a look at the questions that you have. If you have some questions, and I'm happy to answer them. So I'm going to unshare my screen and see if we have some questions. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I'm trying to see here. Okay, Ran has asked the following question. What are your thoughts about more explicitly integrating evaluation of solution market, receptivity, maturity, and adoption issues, strategic issues? So Not sure if I understand exactly your question, Ran, but let me give you my perspective. We try to design worksheet 2 so that it addresses most of the consideration or the key consideration when evaluating a market opportunity. However, there should definitely and probably be other important consideration that might be missing there for your specific case. So what we encourage you to do in this case is to add them to your worksheet. If you find some strategic issues that are important for you and are missing in this evaluation process, just add them either to the either to the potential side or to the challenge side. Okay, Mike asked, do you have example where this has been incorporated into the I-Corp and Lean Startup process? So yes, sure. One company that I've worked with, it's actually a company from Cornell Tech called Onsite IQ. It's solution or innovation for the construction market. And this founder actually went to the I-Corp first, and he tried tried to learn a bit about a specific area where he should apply his innovation, and he found out that it was not interesting enough. He finished the I-Corp process with a no-go. And then we went through the Market Opportunity Navigator and we found different directions for him. And one of them, the construction market, was using the vision capabilities that he had to increase quality in the construction market. And this one turned out to be really promising and interesting. So you can definitely use this wide lens perspective either before you go into the I-Corp process or even after that, to make sure that you understand what else might be in store for you. Let's see what other questions we have here now. Just a minute. So John asked the following. Have you ever seen a taxonomy of potential customer types that could be used for opportunity identification? For example, top level might be business government customers. Next level down might have different categories within each of these. So, okay, I hope I understand your question again, John, but I suppose what you want to understand, are there typical type of users that tend to go with the moonshot or with the quick win or with the gold mine opportunities? So my insight on that is that first, we all want to have a gold mine option. And if we have a gold mine option, it's great for everyone. If you look at the venture capital industry, for example, they might claim that if it's not a moonshot idea, it's not interesting enough for them. I believe that what they actually want to invest in are gold mines, but they talk about moonshots. In any case, if you are willing to take the risk, bear the risk, and have the resource for that, like government or large corporations, a moonshot is definitely an interesting and exciting option. As for the quick wins, many times we urge new startups that are so low on resources to find a quick win, which could be a great stepping stone on their way towards a more moonshot opportunity. Okay, Carlos. Companies that live longer than the average aren't usually able to do so without changing their capabilities, changing markets, sometimes even industries. How would you help companies to create new market opportunities that go beyond their current business and skills? Would you still use the first step? Okay, great question, Carlos. Thank you for that. So, My answer would be the following. We know today that great opportunities, new growth opportunities for corporates do need to somehow rely on their core competencies. Take a look at Chris Zook's book, Growing from the Core. However, you can add new capabilities, technologies, innovation into this set, and with these new innovations, discover completely new markets for your company. So what we found interesting is that once you use Worksheet 2 to describe your building blocks, you can think of new ones that you currently don't have but might be interesting to acquire or to develop. And this opens up completely new opportunity spaces for the company. So it's a cognitive exercise, actually. What if we had a building block that is a blockchain technology, for example? What if we had a new building block which is advanced imaging technology, whatever? And these ideas help you to build or to come up with new applications and customers. Of course, there are other good tools to do that. I'm not saying this is the only way. Design thinking is great, and there are other ways to come up with completely new options, but this is just another one, another way to do this. And today it's really important, just like you said. Okay. Okay, Frederick asked how to use these tools with a team whose members are on different locations. Do you plan to develop somehow a digitalized version of the tool to enable collaborative work? And also Ben asked me the same. So thank you for this question. We are working on it just now. So we are developing a web application, a digitalized worksheets actually. But it's work in progress. So hopefully we will be able to offer it in the near future. For now, what I suggest to do is a simple save the worksheet as PDF and use it on a simple PowerPoint platform, just like I did now with the presentation that I showed you. That is the best we can do for now, and hopefully can have a new news in the next few weeks or months. So, my friends, our time is up. I hope you have found this session valuable. I'm really happy to hear back from you. If you have any other questions or additional requests, please send me an email and I'll be happy to reply. And happy to hear your insights and experience. Thank you very much and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.